Raising the Bets is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to Raising the Bets. We're a Catholic couple raising 5 kids outside of Boston. Join us as we share the joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, and our adventures near and far as we make sense of the world and experience the best parts of our culture. I'm Don Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
So it's been a bit of a crazy week.
A bit? Yeah, you could say that.
It's like some weeks when we sit down, it's like, all right, what did we do? Not much. This week, we did a lot. We've been saving it up, apparently. Okay, let's start with the bad stuff. So we've been having a heat wave, like pretty much everybody else. And on Monday, right? Last Monday? I think it was Monday.
Time has no meaning anymore. I couldn't tell you when anything happened.
It was either Monday or Tuesday. I'm pretty sure it's Monday. The air conditioning stopped working, which is not good. We have central air, and it was, 95 to 100 degrees. My office, where we're sitting now, is on the far side of the house from the air handler, so it's always the warmest and or coldest, depending on the season.
And it used to be a garage, so that when they converted it, they didn't do a terribly great job in insulating
and all that. So it's either too hot or too cold, and they get all the computer equipment in here. So it was even worse. So it was like 100 degrees in the office. It was terrible. And so we had the guy come out. He looked at it on trying to the timeline. We had a technician come out, look at it, said, "Okay, I fixed it. It's whatever this is. Like, it's a bad circuit breaker, and here we're gonna have to have if it happens again, we'll have to have an electrician come and look at it. But it's working now." We let it sit overnight, and when he came in, it was working. So, because that's the way it always works. When the repair guy comes, the thing is working that was broken. Anyway, so what do you think happened? It broke again. It stopped working. So what was happening was the compressor outside was running, but the blower in the attic was not blowing the air out through the vents, so there was no cold air. Like, the cold air was like just sitting in the air handler instead of going to all the rooms. So we spent another warm night and called, and they said they would let the electrician know. He would contact us to schedule a time to come see us. He never came, so I called again the next day. I said, "It's kind of really hot. Could he come today?" And
actually, we were luckily by that time the heat wave had broken.
The heat wave had broken, but
it was warm in our house, but it wasn't blisteringly hot.
We've talked before about how our house's ventilation, our windows are too small. It doesn't ventilate. We're running the air conditioner. Even when it's 65 degrees outside, it's like 80 something degrees in the house. And so we have to run the air conditioner. It's a terrible house. just say
awful.
It. As anyone who's listened for any length of time knows, it's a terrible house. So, long story short, he came on Thursday, and the electrician and diagnosed it as the bad thermostat. So we have a Google Nest learning thermostat, the smart thermostat, that was put in by Tesla when they put the solar panels in. So thanks again, Tesla. And I mean, we had one before then, but they replaced it with their new one. And he said, "No, this is bad." And because he just showed me how if you took it out of the loop, the air conditioning would work. When you put it back in the loop, it didn't. So I had to run to Home Depot and get an inexpensive new thermostat. And I got another smart thermostat because it's an integral part of the way I run things. So long story short, I'll talk about that on actually Secrets of Tech this week, if you really want to know. So it worked for a while, as it normally would. And then after a while, it would reach temp. And then the next time it wanted to go on again, it wouldn't, the blowers wouldn't come on. And it did that the first time after he left, but it hasn't done it since. So, knock on wood.
Maybe it's
guardian
fixed.
Angels. Maybe it's fixed.
Maybe it's not. Who knows?
Who knows? It's the sword of Damocles hanging over our head. It could be broken. Who knows? In any case, we now have air conditioning at the moment, so that's good. So I don't have to worry about that for the moment. The other big thing that happened this week is on Friday, my nephew got married, and so you and I were invited to that wedding.
Right.
Kids, it was a grown-ups only wedding, so the kids didn't go. And beautiful wedding.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Scituate, which is seaside, and it was at the St. Mary of the Nativity Church. The celebrant was Bishop Bob Reed, who some of you may know from Catholic TV. He happens to be my nephew's godfather because he was a priest at their parish and was friends with my brother and his wife when Joe was born, these many years ago. And so he agreed to, of course, celebrate the wedding. And him standing there in his mitre did remind me of marriage is what brings us here today. The Princess Bride, the impressive clergyman. So, yeah, it was a beautiful day. Gorgeous, literally a perfect day.
Yeah. Not
a cloud in the sky, 70 degrees and
there were some clouds.
Okay.
It was just
puffy clouds in the sky.
Yeah.
Mid-70s and breezy. It was gorgeous. Yeah. What did you think of the wedding itself? Just to start with.
It was lovely.
Any thoughts? No particular? It was a nice wedding. Bishop Reed gave his homily sitting down.
That was different.
I think because he's a bishop. I think bishops traditionally give their homilies or can give their homilies from the seat.
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to ask him. He made a big deal about being godfather and that he was adopting Elizabeth, the bride, as his goddaughter. Talked about there was the thing about behind the scenes.
Right. Being the head of Catholic TV, he spends a lot of time on camera.
Right.
And he talked about how people who work in television are very fascinated with the behind the scenes.
How the behind the scenes works in other shows and things.
Right. And that marriage is.
There's a behind the scenes to marriage. Well, you and I took different things from his homily.
Right.
What was yours?
Well, I was actually trying to figure out what he was doing with the whole behind the scenes thing, but something along the lines of in marriage, there's the public face that you show to the world, and then there's the behind the scenes, which is really more important, like how things actually work. I'm not sure actually.
Okay. Mine was actually kind of like that, which is that there's a public face to marriage, but there's an inner life of marriage that is only known to the couple, to the husband and wife. And even like there's an inner life to family that is only known to the husband and wife and the kids, but there's an even inner life that only the husband and wife.
Yeah, see, I think that I might actually have picked that up from you, and I don't remember what my initial take was because you overwrote it with your take.
Okay, well, that was my take on it. Was and then he talked about how they only now know, even though they have great role models and their parents and other married couples that they know, only now will they really understand what it means to be married, what that inner life is like, and what that relationship is like. And then there was some about the life of the Trinity or something like that. I think that was in there too. So, yeah, it was very nice. So then there was the wedding reception. This was, I would say, easily the most elaborate wedding reception I've ever been to.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, maybe one of my cousins who got married 30 some odd years ago had a bigger Italian wedding.
Mm-hmm.
So bigger, but not more elaborate. This wasn't we haven't been. I mean, we really haven't been to weddings very much in the past decade. But there's a trend now apparently, and actually I noticed this online yesterday when I was scrolling through stuff online, that the entrance gimmick is big. As the bridesmaids and the groomsmen come in, they need to do some type of dance move. They do a walk-in, and they have walk-in music.
See, I don't remember ever being, I guess you're saying elaborate. I would say scripted. It was the most scripted wedding reception I've been to in terms of like you said, like I don't remember ever being to a wedding where it was a big deal where the bridesmaids and groomsmen came into the reception. Like I remember being at weddings where it was a big deal.
Well, they introduced them.
They introduced the
they
bride
walk
and the
in.
bride and the groom. I don't remember the bridesmaids and people being introduced.
Italian weddings, they introduced them. Oh no, that's a thing.
Okay, I don't know that I've ever.
Did they not introduce them at our wedding? They walked in individually.
Into the reception?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Well, it's certainly introducing people as they walk in. Yes. But this was like they come in to music and they have a special dance that they've choreographed together, and it's all like very elaborate. And then, you know, the bride and the groom come in, and it's the even more elaborate dance that they do. And apparently, and they've, and of course the parents also had to do an elaborate walk-in dance. And apparently they've been taking lessons and choreography on this stuff for months. I think that's why Patty called the wedding detail oriented. Like there was a lot of details, and she was like, yeah, Joe's really intent. Her son, Joe, is really intent on me, you know, making sure that I know how to do the dance. And I've been assuring him, sure. I'll have it. It'll be fine. So I think he was really worried because Joe is really detail oriented kind of guy. And so they kept dancing into that. Then there was the bride and the mother's dance that then eventually included her sister, because there's just the two sisters. So the bride, her sister and her mom. Then there's the bride and her grandfather. Then the bride and her father, and then the groom and his mother. There was not a groom and his father dance, so I'm not sure my brother would have gone for that. It was just kind of wild. And there was like a whole selfie area where they had this neon sign that said the Bettinellis established 2022, that you get your selfie taken in front of by this guy who's running a selfie booth. That's a thing. And the place, or the venue, was a beautiful like barn-like place. It was really nice. And the food was fantastic.
The food was really awesome.
Yeah,
there's a string quartet during the cocktail hour, which
string
was
quartet.
Really nice.
Yep. And appetizers, there was like teeny lobster rolls and teeny tacos with
fish tacos,
ceviche fish tacos. And
was it ceviche? I thought it was just fish tacos.
I think it was ceviche. I think at one point they said it tasted so kind of very fresh and citrusy.
It was definitely had like a mango salsa on it. I wasn't.
It was cold, so. Then there was the mushroom thingies, which I would have just wanted. It was like fried.
Oh, those
breaded
were so
mushroom.
Good.
Yeah.
Fried breaded mushroom with some sort of a sauce on a little mini roll.
Yeah.
Crostini roll.
I thought it was going to be just the mushroom. Like I just wanted the mushroom, but
I liked it.
It was okay. It was okay. What was the other thing? They had
some like little fried wontons with
vegan caviar.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. Which is basically mustard seeds with a gel coating on it. Because
and then a really nice what they call charcuterie board nowadays.
Oh yes,
I would call it antipasto.
Yes, normal people, i.e. Italians, would call it antipasti. It had all kinds of meats and had all kinds of cheeses. You graciously got me a bunch of blue cheeses, several different kinds of blue cheese, which is really awesome.
Yeah,
I love blue cheese.
I hate blue cheese, and some of it got on my other cheese, and I was just like, my brie now tastes like blue cheese.
See, I love blue cheese, and you hate blue. That's one of the areas where we are so very different.
But seriously, as somebody who has never met a canapé I didn't like, this was awesome because there were so many really good ones. I think there was something else that I didn't even get the name of.
Yeah.
Really yummy.
Yeah, there were several platters that never quite got to us before they were cleared out. So we sat in the wrong place. We're such rookies. Then there was the dinner, and the dinner was this salad. It was a beet salad.
It was so good.
There was 3 different kinds of beets. There was Chioggia beets, there was a golden beet, and then a regular purple beet. And they were cut up in different ways. Some were wedges, some were like thin strips, some were slices, and they had sort of an orange citrus vinaigrette with it.
And strawberries.
Oh, there were strawberries in it too.
The strawberries with the orange citrus vinaigrette and the beets was just amazing.
See, I normally don't like fruit in my salads, but this was really good.
There wasn't a lot of green in the salad. There were some like little microgreens that I think were maybe radish or cress or something, with a little bit of a spicy kick to them, but not.
Could have used more greens.
I would have liked a little bit more greens, but it was really good.
And then the main course, there was some vegan option, some tofu thing or something, but
it was cauliflower steak.
Oh, right. Cauliflower steak, quote unquote steak. Sorry, my contempt is coming out of me now. But I got the filet mignon, and you had the salmon.
The salmon was really good.
It was I'm not a huge filet mignon fan because I find it not as flavorful. It's super tender, but it was really good. It was really well cooked. So they actually did a really good job with it. And they had like a Hasselbeck potato and some a hash of like asparagus and what was asparagus and some other greens, some other green vegetable. It was really good. It was really good. And yours had purple potatoes?
Mine had purple. The salmon came with purple potatoes, and it had like a succotash, like a corn and peas and tomatoes, with some sort of a creamy sauce.
Yeah. So the meal was fantastic, really good.
The cake was super good too.
Yes, it
was like a white cake, which can often be dry. This was super moist.
Yeah,
and it was like 3 layers, and the 2 inner layers both had strawberries and blueberries in them.
And it wasn't icing; it was like whipped cream.
Yeah, super light. Like sometimes icing can be really heavy, and this was just really light and fruity and moist and good.
Yeah, it was really good.
And not overwhelming after a big meal.
So apart from the food, which
I'm all about the food.
Obviously we're all about the food. Couple observations. So many bald men with blonde wives. So Joe works in finance. He's a big finance guy. Works for Fidelity. And there was a number of, we actually had a banker from Morgan Stanley sitting at our table, and but there was it was kind of comical how many like bald guys with blonde wives there were.
A little bit cliche, are you trying to say?
Maybe a little. And yeah, so that's all I'll say about that. You had an observation about being a homeschooler.
Oh, right. One of the people at our table who I didn't know, and I didn't actually know anyone at our table.
Yeah, we were kind of seated in the hinterlands.
But she was being very, very polite and asking me about my interests. And I'm always a little bit nervous because, well, my interests are literature, and a lot of people just don't know what to do with that. So I mentioned that, and she kind of did I don't know what to do with that. And then I said, but I'm not teaching anymore because I'm homeschooling. And then she got very excited and interested because she has a friend who's homeschooling. And these days, I think, like, even 5 years ago, if I told somebody I was a homeschooler, I would frequently still get I'm not sure what to do with that reaction.
Or more pointedly, 3 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
But post-COVID, everybody knows somebody who's homeschooled. Like, everybody who knows has kids has some sort of homeschooling experience, even if it's, just pandemic homeschooling. And therefore, homeschooling is no longer this weird ultra thing that nobody quite knows what to do with. Now it's like, oh, well, weren't you prescient because now you like dealt with the pandemic and homeschooling and everything like that, like so well because you were already a pro at it. Mm-hmm. It's very just interesting how that changes the dynamic of the conversation when you're talking to a stranger who you don't know about homeschooling.
Yeah.
No longer do you seem like weirdo freak. You're more like interesting person who has a new take on this thing that everybody has something to say about.
Right. Yeah. I mean, 10% of kids in America were homeschooled this year. 10%. I mean, that's a crazy number. So yeah, everybody knows somebody who at least pandemic schooled, and most people know somebody who's homeschooling. So yeah, it's kind of wild. It's funny. I had on my left, so they were seated, that couple was seated to your right. But I had on my left, there was a really nice guy named Jody who I had a great conversation with.
Yeah, your conversation was like really intense.
So he's a finance guy too, although he works for Dave Ramsey now, and he used to work for Fidelity. Former Navy officer. He was friends with my nephew's first boss at Fidelity. Basically, he hired him there, and he's since moved on. But very faithful Catholic, loves The Journey Home with Marcus Grodi and EWTN. Like, he apparently has all of the shows archived, like that he listens to them over and over again. He's sort of obsessive about it, it sounded like, but in a good way. And so I'm like, the funny thing is like, oh yeah, and I called the producer there. Oh, his name's Matt. I'm like, oh, Matt Swaim. He's like, you know him? Sort of, yeah. I mean, I'm in the community, you know, so I know Matt, I know John Mark Rodai. Yeah. I'm like, hey, have you ever listened to the episode with my friend Jeff Miller? He's the Kurt Jester. Yeah, dude, check that out if you haven't. Oh, the Barons. You got to listen to the Barons episode on that one too. So it was a lot of fun, and we had a really great conversation. It was a really nice guy, and I mean, he's the sort of guy I'd love to have an extended conversation with that's not in a really loud wedding room with.
I had a very hard time having conversations because evidently my hearing is going, and I could only hear like one word in 3, and I was trying to like pretend like I was keeping up with the conversation while being a little bit at sea. Basically, I felt old.
It was funny because I did feel I think I wasn't older than everybody at our table. I mean, Paul's Patty, my sister-in-law Patty's brother Paul was at the table. He's older than I am. I think Jody was probably older than I am. The other guy might not have been older than me, and he and his wife were only married for 6 years. They said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was fun. We stayed for a little bit through a little bit of the dancing, but we don't really do nightclub sort of dancing.
We stayed to get the cake, and then, well, I might have been tempted to stay longer, but the kids were at home alone, and
yes.
I felt like they had been.
It was their first long day without us.
We left at like noon.
Yeah.
Before noon.
Yeah.
To get to the wedding, so we were gone for quite a long time.
Yeah, by the time we got home, it was after 9. So that was the longest we'd ever left them all alone home. And we still need to figure out the phone situation because we don't have a house phone. And so we're still figuring out. I dropped the ball. I was supposed to get Bella a phone service on her phone, and I had not by then. And so because I'm dithering about whether to go with Mint Mobile, which is a whole nother thing because it sounds like a deal is too good to be true. If you use Mint Mobile and it works for you, please let me know because
I want him to stop dithering and just make a decision.
I've been an AT&T customer for over 20 years with the phones. So it's not that AT&T has been great.
Change is hard.
Especially when you're an old man.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do it. I'm going to do it. When Bella comes back with it and brings her phone back from camp, which we'll talk about in a second, I will do it. Pull the trigger on it. Which is a segue to talking about. So the very next day after the wedding was scout camp, which is why we were rushing all during the week with no AC to get them packed because Friday was not going to be a day we could pack.
Packing with no AC was not fun.
That was miserable.
I was just like, I'm hot and I'm tired and I don't want to do this, but I have to because they have to pack. 4
out of 5 of the kids are at scout camp this year. Yeah, yep. Lucy's here alone with us. And so, I mean, there's the whole saga of the medical forms. I don't want to get into that, but the doctor's office totally dropped the ball on the medical form that they were supposed to fill and give to us. They filled out, gave them plenty of notice. They got us 2 of them. And for some reason, even though we kept calling, they could not manage to get us 2 more. I still wish I had got a straight answer on what was going on there. Oh, I'm planning on calling to find out because I'm not done with this.
We have a new pediatrician, so I haven't met this new pediatrician yet.
I'm burning that bridge before we meet her.
Oh my goodness. You don't have to deal with the woman.
I know.
Anyway, we have a new pediatrician. My one thought was that I think that at the time of the physical, our old pediatrician had said that she wasn't going to fill out to finalize Anthony's scout form, camp and school form, until he had seen the cardiologist. Part
of the problem is that the scout council where the camp is being held is being unreasonable. Because they basically want 3 forms that all say the same thing. They want the letter that the pediatrician gives you.
Right. The pediatrician had already given us the camp and school form, which they fill out ahead of time so they don't have to deal with this stuff.
Right.
And then the scout said, yeah, we've got that letter. We
want them to also fill out this other form, which has the same information.
That has to have the doctor's signature on it.
And then they have us fill out another medical form, which has basically the same information. So like 3 copies is stupid. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about it.
So I can understand if the holdup was Anthony's, like she needed to talk to the cardiologist to make sure the cardiologist
doesn't explain Ben's.
But that doesn't explain why she couldn't do Ben's.
Yeah.
Which
kind of crazy making. Anyway, so Saturday we loaded up foot lockers, tents, sleeping bags, the whole shebang, and we headed down to Cape Cod, which is where the camp is held, and hour and a half drive, not bad. We stopped for lunch at McDonald's, and so it adds a little time. And there's traffic getting over the canal bridges, but in general, it was a pretty good trip. Another gorgeous day. We've been having wonderful weather this week. Sorry to everybody who's been having terrible weather. We're having wonderful weather this week, and
finally, yeah,
this year was much easier getting set up. There wasn't a big crowd like there was last year. There was a big crowd.
We got there a bit earlier, or everybody else got there later this year.
It was nowhere near as hot either. Last year was terribly hot. But also, so it was Anthony's first scout camp. It's his first extended time away from us. Like that's the others all did it last year, but this is his first time away from us. So we were a little worried, but he separated pretty quickly, pretty easily.
He had his brother there. He knows all the other scouts.
His sisters are just across the camp. Yeah. So nowhere near the drama that there was last year from any of them.
Right.
There was a lot of drama last year, but not this year, because the others were familiar with it. They were happy. They wanted us to go so they could go have fun.
Yeah, they're like, okay, we know what we're doing. Go away now. Yeah. Bye. We'll see you in a week.
Yep. So, but you'll see them in a day. As we record this is Sunday, because Monday is Weebelow's day, and that means that you're taking Lucy down to camp overnight, Monday to Tuesday, with her at the camp.
Yay.
I would do it, but I have to record podcasts. All you people out there demanding that we actually produce the podcasts. So I would be there. I would do it for you, but you're going to end up camping with her this time, which is your first time scout camping.
Yes, it is. I've been camping before.
I've
never camped with the scouts. Lucy is a little bit trepidatious because she doesn't know what to expect, and I'm like, I'm there with you. I don't really know what to expect. I don't know if I'm expected to do all the activities with her, or if I am expected to like sit in a lawn chair while she does all the activities. I really don't know. And
we have not actually been given a schedule of the day or anything like that. So no. Yeah, it's kind of. My guess is the expectation is that you'll be around, like because she's younger, she's a Weebelo. You need to be present during, so basically follow them from place to place,
right?
But you don't have to. I don't think you have to do things. Well, unless Troop 19 does things differently, but guess not. Well, so you'll get a chance to get an update from them tomorrow, the others, to see how they're going,
and take Anthony his toothbrush, which somehow got left on the kitchen counter, much to my surprise,
in his footlocker. He took it out to brush his teeth, probably, and then
forgot to put it back
in. That's my guess. Anyway, so so that's scout camp. So then we came back, and since yesterday was our anniversary,
17 years,
you and I went out to dinner with Lucy, which was fun.
Which I'm pretty sure that the year she was born, we went out to our anniversary dinner with Lucy too. So this is
sushi.
Did it? Was it?
Yeah, it was at Mount Fuji over in Quincy.
How can you remember that?
I have a really terrible memory, but I do remember taking a baby to, I remember every sushi place we've ever been to. That I remember. I remember sushi. So yes, we went to Mount Fuji for our anniversary with a baby. So I'm guessing it must have been Lucy.
Maybe.
It could have been Anthony, but my guess is it was Lucy. In any case, we took Lucy. We went out for sushi, different sushi place.
Lucy was thrilled. She got to eat sushi until she was full.
Yes.
Which never happens for poor little fifth child.
7 of us. Sushi is super expensive for all of us. So I sometimes will buy it as a special treat at Whole Foods when I have to run over there. And then that's just like rationing.
Right. And once or twice we've actually been out for sushi. But again, we ordered a few rolls and everybody got a few pieces. And then the bulk of the meal was,
But since this was our anniversary, we kind of ordered a lot.
We splurged.
We did splurge. And everybody got their fill. I mean, even I was kind of full by the end. I was kind of shoving that last one down. And for me to get full on sushi is a lot.
I ordered more than I normally would, partly because I wanted to see Lucy trying all the different things.
Yes.
If it had been just you and I would have been a lot more moderate, but watching Lucy explore the world of sushi was really fun.
It's so hard for her to find things that she'll eat. She's so picky eater.
And she really does enjoy sushi a lot.
Yeah. She was game to try the chopsticks, and she had some miso soup, and yes, it was very nice. It was fun. It was very cute. And it's going to be an interesting week. Just Lucy bopping around here. It's already, the fifth child who's always had older siblings around, who have at least one, is now has the sole attention, and it's already clear that she's, in the absence of the others, she's a lot sassier than I realized. Not in a bad way, sassy in a funny, cute way.
I realized because I see her more
right with the schooling and things like that. Yeah, I'm in the office working, but yeah. So
yeah, she is a sassy kid.
Sassafras. All right, so. Given everything that's been going on, we have not been doing a lot of cooking this week.
No, I think the food portion of this was the sushi and the wedding food.
Right.
We talked about food.
There was another actually food thing that happened this week that I didn't mention, which I pushed to the food section, which is the girls' troop 13. We had a breakfast for dinner.
Oh, that's right. You did that
meeting this week. That was also this week. And I had volunteered to cook for that. So I made my famous fluffy pancakes, my special recipe that I brought, and I brought my skillets, my electric skillets, and my bacon presses and everything. And that went pretty well. The downside is I've not been making pancakes very much at all in the past year. Part of the problem is that Sundays our mass is late, and it's just once we get home from mass, it's like lunchtime, and nobody wants pancake. I don't want to make pancakes.
You don't want to. They would gladly eat pancakes.
They would eat pancakes whenever I made them, and maybe I'll do that for a treat. Maybe I'll do it next Sunday. But in any case, the baking soda was old, and it just proved why you should always throw out old baking soda and keep buying fresh baking soda, even if you haven't finished using it, because those pancakes were flat. They were crepes. They were pretty flat. They didn't have any fluff in them. I hate that. I pride myself on fluffy pancakes, and so I was kind of annoyed by that.
I see.
The other thing about it, though, is that one of the other moms, Heather, she made sausage and gravy and biscuits.
Biscuits with sausage gravy.
I wrote down sausage and gravy. What I meant to say was biscuits with sausage and gravy. Now I'm kind of obsessed with making it. This is what happens. I get obsessed, and I started looking at recipes, and I have different ideas, and I want to make something. I've had really good biscuits and gravy before in Texas, Corpus Christi, when I was at the Naval Air Station there in the Officers Club. It was really good, and I kind of want to make really good biscuits and gravy. So I'll report back to y'all next time.
See,
y'all.
I love me some biscuits, but I like biscuits with honey, not gravy.
Yeah, I know.
I do not get the biscuits and gravy thing.
Sweet and savory.
Yep. Give me the sweet every day.
Oh, I love savory. All right. So yeah, so that's all food stuff. Then let's talk about stuff we've been watching or reading. I've been catching up on both Longmire and Stargate SG-1. I've been doing a rewatch of Stargate ahead of the Secrets of Stargate team, so I got to keep up with that because it's just fun. I haven't watched Stargate in decades, so it's fun to keep watching it, to watch it again. And Longmire is just a really good series on Netflix. I
started to watch that with you, and then you got ahead of me.
Yes. Well, I couldn't get you to come watch it with me.
You never asked.
Oh, well. Season 4. I think I'm in season 4 now. I didn't realize it was a Netflix original series until now. I didn't realize that. But it's really good. The other thing though I watched some Disney Plus short videos with Lucy yesterday. I Am Groot, shorts. They're like 2-3 minutes long. They're very cute. So it's Baby Groot. So it's very cute and very funny. She was just giggling up a storm. So if you got little ones around who like Baby Groot, definitely check that out. And then on Thursday, I recorded a series of movies and TV shows on The Last Starfighter, which is a
oh wow, I remember seeing that ages ago.
1984, total let's capitalize on Star Wars sort of thing, and it's such a great movie. It's not like a great movie. It's a fun movie to watch. It's a good movie, and I don't know. We talk about what makes this such a good movie, even though the individual things it's computer graphics. They went for it. Like back then, even Star Wars were still miniatures. They went for computer graphics, and it looks primitive, but it looks good, and it's just surprising how much fun the story is. And there's elements of maybe it's the hero. He's not an anti-hero. It's not very cynical at all. It feels actually kind of like a Disney movie in some ways. And then there's talk about the sequels or maybe rebooting it or something like that today, which I'm not sure. There's always talk of rebooting Gen X nostalgia fare,
right?
Like Top Gun Maverick and that sort of stuff. So who knows if it would be worthwhile. But so I did watch that. So that was fun. You watched something new last night.
Yeah, I watched the first 2 episodes of Around the World in 80 Days. The kids and I had read the book for school this year, and it was fun.
It's on Amazon Prime, or no? You got it on Apple.
It's also on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, you can buy it as a season. I wonder where that's actually airing. So, but go ahead. So,
it was a PBS.
Oh, okay.
So it was a PBS, and it's got David Tennant as Phileas Fogg, and I forget the actress who plays. They made the detective Fix into a spunky female reporter, and I know the actress, and I'm blanking on her name.
I'm looking it up now. So, Abigail Fix.
Yeah.
Leonie Benesh.
I thought it was somebody I recognized.
I don't know.
Anyway, it was fun. It was not really very close to the original.
Yeah.
In terms of plot, they made a lot of changes in the plot, but also in terms of characterization. Like David Tennant, I don't dislike his Phileas Fogg, but it is a very different sort of character in some ways than the Phileas Fogg in the novel. Like David Tennant is much more hesitant and wavering and ready to turn back, whereas the character in the novel never wavers once, never once thinks about turning back. He is monomaniacal about doing this, and he does not ever doubt himself. Whereas David Tennant's character is much more plagued with self-doubt. And he's a little bit more of a mad, inventive genius, which kind of felt a little bit like his Doctor Who portrayal of the Doctor. However, I will persevere and watch the whole series, and hopefully we'll watch it again when the kids come home, and I think they'll enjoy it. They will also enjoy critiquing it and going on at length about how it's different from the book, which I think is kind of fun, because that's one way for them to like think more deeply about the book and why it works like it does. But also it's just kind of fun to hear kids ranting. I don't know.
So apparently there's 8 episodes in the first season.
What I'm curious about is the fact that it's a first season and it's not like the whole book.
Yeah.
Like, what did they do to this book? It's a very short novel. It's not long.
Well, I mean, by episode 7, they're in the Rockies, so I'm not sure what they're.
What else is left?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they sometimes they'll list it as like season 1, but that's just assuming. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a season 2. Maybe like another. It's Masterpiece Theater, so do they generally do multi-season?
I don't
stories.
Know. Sometimes.
Yeah. I'm not a really Masterpiece Theater aficionado, so I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. You may recognize her, Leonie Benesh, from The Crown. She was in The Crown.
Oh, who was she in The Crown?
Princess Cecile.
Oh, I didn't get that far.
Okay, I don't know who that is, so I didn't watch The Crown. So
I watched the first season of The Crown, and then I watched a few episodes of the second season, and decided I really wasn't interested in this part of the royal family story.
Yeah.
I liked the first bit. The first season was very much about duty and vocation, and I really liked it. But the second season was much more about infidelity and scandal, and I just it wasn't what I liked about the I mean, I know it's a biopic, so, but it kind of lost what it had intrigued me in the first.
Even biopics, they choose what to focus on.
Right.
So, so then you also, I talked about watching Grace a while ago. The short series, detective series on BritBox, British television. And you managed to watch it recently.
I did. Yeah, I finished the second season this week, and I really liked it. Some of it was a little bit on the dark side in terms of like
human nature, the dark
human nature, and also some more graphic imagery, like in terms of what they actually show on screen.
Yeah.
Especially the one about the internet snuff film. That
was first season. Yeah.
That was really dark.
That was really dark. Yeah.
More graphic than I was.
The second season, I think, was less so.
Right. I really liked. So the third episode of the second season, or was it the fourth? The last
episode. I think there was only 3. Yeah.
Was interesting in that it focused on human trafficking and like selling human organs
for
transplants, and it had some really nice moments in terms of dealing with sort of the pro-life issues of what makes a human life valuable. And so the bad guys in the series are picking off transients,
immigrants, especially illegal immigrants in England.
Right. And at one point, Grace, the detective, is facing down the surgeon who's responsible for doing the transplants, and saying you don't have the right. And the surgeon is very jaded and saying, now you're going to give me the speech about how like this girl might have one day become a great athlete or a great actress or he names several different professions, and Grace says, no, you don't get it. It doesn't matter whether she would have been a great such and such or something. Just her life has value if it's an ordinary life doing ordinary things. I really liked that. Like, her life has value because it's her life, not because of what she will do. It's not a utilitarian view of the value of human life at all. And I really liked that moment. It was a great moment.
Yes, life matters, even if it's an ordinary life. It doesn't. It's the personhood. It's the person that matters, not what they do. That's one of the things I like about the show is it really, it gets into these questions and these issues of the value of the people, the victims, advocating for them, and as real people, not just case numbers or whatever. And so I did like that. And finally, you mentioned you've started reading a book.
Yeah, I started. So I've started rereading Laurus, which I read last year, I think. Mm-hmm. The Close Reads podcast is doing a read through on that, and so I'm just slowly listening to the audiobook, audiobooks are fun. And then I started reading a vampire novel, which one of my friends recommended. It's a series, but I'm on book 1. Called Those Who Hunt the Night.
Yeah, as you mentioned.
By Barbara Handley. I've liked some of Barbara Handley's books before. She's written some historical fiction and some fantasy that I've enjoyed in the past. I've read
some of her fantasy a long time ago. It was pretty good.
I really liked her historical fiction about this doctor, Benjamin January, in New Orleans. He's a free man of color. And he sort of inhabits the spaces in between the world. Like he's a doctor. He's gone to medical school in France. Now he's come back to the U.S. and he's sort of inhabiting the world between the slaves and the free people of color and the white aristocracy. And it was really interesting, like in terms of sociology and history. So Those Who Hunt the Night takes place in the early 1900s. I want to say like 1904 or 1905. And the protagonist is a British academic. He's a philologist, actually, mm-hmm. and linguist who has done some work for the Secret Service. So like while he was off doing research in South Africa for a paper that he was doing, he was actually also spying for the British government.
Okay.
So that's his backstory. And then he's married to a young woman who is actually a medical doctor at a time when women didn't very frequently become medical doctors. She's rich. She's an heiress, but she married the poor scholar rather than some guy who was after her for her money. And the interesting twist is it's basically a murder mystery, but the protagonist, Asher, has been hired by a vampire to find out who is killing the other vampires.
Huh.
And he does not want to be working for a vampire. He didn't believe in vampires until the vampire showed up, but the vampire is blackmailing him into taking on the case by threatening his wife.
Yeah. Huh?
So there's an interesting sort of thing where he's kind of both trying to solve the mystery, and he's partly curious, but also trying to figure out how to get himself and his wife out of this and maybe stop the vampires altogether, because they're vampires and they're killing people. And he is appalled at the fact that this vampire he's working for continues to kill people.
Right.
Honestly, it's kind of slow going. And if my friend hadn't spoken so very highly, especially of later books in the series, I might be tempted to put it down, because it is kind of dragging a bit. And I'm not all that excited about like figuring out who's killing the vampires.
It's kind of like if a mobster hiring a detective to find out who's killing all the mobsters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some awareness of Bram Stoker and awareness of vampire lore, which is sort of, you have to have that. And it's a period piece. It's set in a particular time and place. So far, there isn't a whole lot of new twists on vampire lore. I mean, the wife who's the doctor thinks that it's perhaps got some viral component to maybe vampires are infected with a viral disease.
That sounds a bit anachronistic. Did they have viral understanding back then?
Certainly they had germ theory, and I think that they hadn't actually seen viruses because they're submicroscopic, but they have a theory of viruses at least.
Okay.
I mean, I think she's probably cutting edge. I'm pretty sure that Barbara Hambly wouldn't have brought it in if there wasn't
she's a good enough writer. Yeah.
A historical referent for it. So that's interesting. I'm curious to see where it goes. I'll probably give it this book and maybe the next book to see, because I was promised that the series gets better. It gets better and more interesting. And I'm curious. I do kind of like vampire lore. I wrote a paper on Dracula when I was in grad school.
Not the biggest fan. There's some vampire stories that have been okay with, like the Dresden Files stuff is okay because it's interesting and it's new. And some of the stuff that has been done in the Wearing the Cape series has been pretty good too. But I'm not like big into Anne Rice or Sparkly Vampires or any of that stuff.
I did read most of Anne Rice's books when I was in college, up to the point that she'd written them. At that point, I haven't read any of her later books.
And I watched Buffy for a while and then just got so dark and so full of darkness that I just couldn't stand to watch it anymore. So anyway, interesting. So let's move on and talk about this week's Sunday readings. So this Sunday is the 20th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Monday is the Feast of the Assumption, but the obligation has been abrogated this year because it's a Monday, and you know how that goes. So we're talking about the 20th Sunday in Ordinary Time. And this is the gospel where Jesus tells the disciples, basically, do you think that I've come to establish peace on earth? No, not rather division. And then it talks about households divided against one another. And he says, I've come to set the earth on fire, and how I wish it were already blazing. There's a baptism with which I must be baptized, and how great is my anguish until it is accomplished. It's a perplexing gospel. In fact, Father, when he started talking about it, kind of pointed out how perplexing it is. Because most of the time Jesus talks about peace. Right. Peace I bring you, my peace I give to you, that all that sort of thing. So why is Jesus talking about I have not come to bring peace on earth, I've come to bring division? And it is interesting also the Father, who's Nigerian, started off by talking about the lack of peace in his country, especially with regard to the other religions like Islam, where there's
there's a lot of attacks by Islamic militants
yeah.
on Catholics, especially Catholic priests. I'm sure he knows people who he went to seminary who have been attacked.
Yes, murdered. So,
but I really liked what he focused on. Like, yes, Jesus does talk about peace. His primary message is peace, but that what kind of division is Jesus talking about? I liked that he brought us back to the first reading in Jeremiah, where Jeremiah, the people try to kill him because he brings God's message to them, talking about how because of their disobedience to God, they are going to continue in slavery, and he urges them to repent. And they don't want to hear that. They want to fight back against the kings of Babylon. And God has said, no, you're going to continue to be enslaved. And so Father talked about how the division that Jesus is talking about is the division between those who seek to do God's will and those who oppose them.
Right.
That there will always be people who will say, I don't like what God wants you to do, and I don't like this, and I'm standing against it.
Yeah, he said that he pointed out that this gospel is the middle of Jesus's journey to Jerusalem.
Right.
In the Gospel of Luke. And so he's talking about this division in families because there are some in the family willing to do God's will and some who aren't. And, he emphasized it's difficult to follow Jesus. You will find opposition and persecution. I mean, that's really what was kind of pointing out. There's one thing about that first reading I want to mention, by the way, before we let it go. When they were going to kill Jeremiah, they didn't just throw them into the cistern. They lowered him with ropes. If you want to kill somebody, why don't you just kill him? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they're intending for him to die.
They want him to starve to death slowly?
I guess. Or they wanted there to be an out. Like, well, we didn't kill him. We just put him down there where there's no water and food. Or maybe, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I have to look. I'd have to look up and maybe ask Jimmy about it. Whether there's a historical context that I'm missing. But why would they lower him down into it with ropes?
Father did talk about in his own personal experience when he was accepted to both seminary and medical school, and or maybe he meant pre-med, and his father was like, why would you go to seminary? You could become a doctor.
Right.
And that opposition, the conflict, the division in his family, because his father wanted him to go be a doctor, but he felt like he was being called to be a priest. And he talked about some of his other fellow seminarians and their conflicts that they experienced with their families.
And you'll even find opposition from faithful Catholics.
Right. It's not necessarily that people are against the church. They're like, sure, the church needs priests. I'm all for that, but why does it have to be my child?
Right.
I've only got one son. Why does it have to be my son?
Or just people who they think they know what God's will is for you or for whatever, and they oppose you on that. But you have prayed on it, and you are convinced in good conscience that this is God's will. And how do you reconcile that opposition? And I mean, you see it all the time in the church now over big things and little things, the opposition between people who are faith-filled believers.
People who all believe that they are seeking God's will, but they don't necessarily always discern the same things as to what God wants from us.
Yeah. I mean, heck, 40,000 Christian denominations, that's a clear sign of this sort of thing where people who believe they are doing God's will, want to do God's will, are unable to agree on what God's will is. And so there's that persecution and suffering that happens between them. So,
or even just not even necessarily persecution, but just misunderstandings and conflicts,
right,
and all kinds of division.
Right. So,
yeah, I remember the story about like St. Clair. She ran away to join St. Francis, and her male relatives came, in force and tried to drag her away, and they were unable to do so because she suddenly became an immovable object, which is one of my favorite bits. Like suddenly they just can't physically move her, despite the fact that they're big, burly, armed men, and she's just this.
Have you ever had
a
toddler throwing a tantrum and becoming dead weight in your arms? Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing.
I mean, I think that there was definitely a supernatural element.
I know. Like she literally was too heavy for even the strongest men to lift.
But again, there's sort of that division in what she was doing was following God's call, but nobody wanted to hear that that's what God wanted her to do.
Right. And which is interesting, given the verse for the Alleluia is, my sheep hear my voice, I know them and they follow me. And that's really what it comes down to is listen for his voice and follow it. Whatever else happens, whatever opposition you encounter, if you sincerely believe that you are in grace, in a state of grace, that you are docile to the Holy Spirit, that you've really opened yourself up to the Spirit, that you're in a prayerful state, not just make sure it's not your pride or your strong will, but that you are open to God's movement, then that's enough. Just hear his voice and follow it. The trick is getting to that point, and I dare say I'm not there. So I really do. It's harder for me to discern sometimes. Is this God's will or is it my will? Is that your will or God's will? So it can be hard. So I'm not sure the funny thing is there's not a solution presented here. Like Jesus just kind of says, nope, there's division.
Right. Not that you're going to be able to overcome the division, right, but just that he comes to bring division. I mean, it's more of an observation about the nature of his kingdom on earth, that his kingdom on earth is not going to necessarily be peaceful. Like, we will have the peace of Christ if we listen to his voice and follow him, but that doesn't mean that we're going to have peace in our relationships with other people.
It doesn't mean that there won't be conflict.
There isn't going to be conflict. The idea that, like, if you were perfectly following God's will, then you wouldn't be in conflict with your family is not.
That's a load of baloney.
That's not at all in line with what Jesus tells us about being his follower.
Yeah. So I think that about says it all. I think we should wrap it up and take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Raising the Bets, including Stephen Y., Austin K., Timothy J., Jedediah H., and Arthur B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Raising the Bets and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. You'll find links from our discussion in our show notes at sqpn.com/bets. That's BETTS. You can send your feedback to our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. You can email it to bets@sqpn.com or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. Remember to like Raising the Bets on the StarQuest Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Retweet us on Twitter at SQPN and leave us comments wherever you find us. We love to interact with you. Until next time, I'm Don Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Thank you for listening to Raising the Bets on StarQuest. Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy, Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. Find the show wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/mysterious.